Keep it short so I don't have to pull it out by the roots.
Rosie, it would be interesting to see how many actually do, you know, because when they get admitted, because a lot of people up there.
They'll get admitted
by the way,
because of a heart attack.
yeah, she went there and she did the phone.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this very short meeting on a Tuesday rather than a Wednesday. We do, of course, have our new sound system set up. So hopefully all of those people joining online can see and hear us clearly and understand everything that is going on. Everybody's pointing to them.
Yeah, that's a
The microphone right now.
That's a microphone, and you can see there's some cameras.
And there's cameras.
So hopefully
No,
this is-
so no,
We got someone-
no else.
no more owls hooting away or being weird and dropping sounds and interrupting and cutting in and out. So
We've got someone externally checking.
well, we will go back. and check
Sarah's listening right now.
Cheryl.
Sarah's listening. Good.
Yeah, so
And Cheryl.
listening as well.
Cheryl's joining us online.
How is it, Cheryl?
It would be really great for those people online to give us some feedback after the meeting, if possible, on what the experience was like on the other side.
Sound. Yes.
Councillor Brown, and a karakia.
Ka puta te waiora, kai te waiora o te whanua, kai te waiora o te tangata, kai te wai, e rere nei, Māori, e oranga, e hononga, Omiei, Huie, and appropriately that means the life-giving water emerges, the well-being of the land, the well-being of the people. So that flows, it is a life force, a source of well-being, a connection. It must be unified, gathered, and it is done.
Good choice.
Privilege.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
She's come along.
Apologies today from Councillor McKinley. Can I have someone move that apology be accepted? Thank you, Sally, and seconded. Thank you, Ian. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. The confirmation of the minutes, which begin on page 7, which are from our meeting, feels like just the other day, 30th of July. Kind of was just the other day. Someone happy to move that those are an accurate reflection of the day in Roxburgh? Thank you, Neil. Seconded. Thank you, Tracy. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest begin on page 21. Please keep an eye on those and update if required via Wayne. And then we move on to what is once again the topic du jour. Southern Water done well. This report is to bring us back the additional numbers and information based on a council controlled organisation of 3 councils, as opposed to 4, 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever it may end up to be down the track. But we did say at the last meeting when we suggested that yes, we would like to continue with a joint CCO, that we'd like to have another look at the numbers. Peter and Julie are going to take us through that now.
Yeah. Good account. So it's quite a lot here, and a whole raft of recommendations. I guess the report did bring back the further analysis that you requested, and that's gone back to all the participating councils. And it does confirm 3 is better than 2 and 2 is better than 1. Obviously 4 is better than 3 and 5 is better than so on and so on. So, but it is what it is at this present point in time. There is quite a lot to this because the water services delivery plan is attached to this document, and this is the this council has to approve the water services delivery plan. Today, our current partners this afternoon and tomorrow, and then obviously we would do any final amendments that's needed to submit the plan by the 3rd of September. It would be with DIA for consideration, and they'll come back to us. Essentially, this, if you approve this commits us on a course of action to establish a water services entity by the 1st of July 2026. Between now and then, this document, and you'll see it in the recommendations, it's permissive in that it keeps the door open to Timaru and to Waitaki, but it also keeps the door open for discussions with other councils in the intervening time post the 3rd of September, because I would expect between now and 2 years from now that there could be some changes, perhaps other councils joining, or Right, so it just means that we are open to further discussions, but we're very open to Waitaki or Timaru coming in if they so choose to. At this present point in time, they haven't. But it's catered for in this document. So yeah, so Julie might have some points to make, but happy to take questions and say there's a lot to this. Essentially, you would also be authorising myself to sign the document because chief executives have to certify that water services delivery plan is compliant with the legislation. Happy to take any questions, Julie. Do you have any comments?
No, probably just any questions. We seem to have talked about this a lot for a long time, so if there's anything you still want to ask. Yeah.
I'd be interested in your views on the plan before us, Julie, because you have been involved from the very beginning,
Yeah.
right back when it was going to be, you know, a single entity for the whole South Island, through to the 10, through to a change in government. Are you satisfied that this plan is going to meet the needs of the people of Central Otago into the future?
I think this plan best meets the needs of the people of Central Otago for the future. It's whatever format you use, it would be it's going to be a challenge because of the requirements, and those requirements are getting bigger and more all the time. But I think the three councils working together has the best option to achieve that. What I would say is, you know, it's disappointing the groups got smaller, but in some regards, we are already starting to work together to align some of our systems. You know, if one of us has a system coming up for a renewal, we're actually looking at what the other two have and aligning now. So I think the transition will be, from an operational perspective, will be simpler. I think it could be less costly too, because if we have the kinds of asset management systems, you don't need to go and invest so much money in some of those things. Obviously, the corporate transition is going to be a lot of work, however many organisations are involved. I think operationally, we're starting to already see some good alignment. And we have good cultural fit with both Goa and Clutha. Things stand, and we're able to support each other quite well.
My question is that there's a lot being made of the financial sustainability and viability of the options, and said a lot of information about that. Just make sure it's quite clear is that if, could I put it this way, that the plan that's been developed is the most financially sustainable and viable one going forward compared to a single CCO or an in-house model?
Look, it'll be more expensive to be on our own because there's a whole lot of duplication that occurs, and even just to the fact that your water services won't be in your LTP anymore. There'll be a separate thing called a water services strategy, which is effectively the LTP for your water. You're going to run all of those things duplicate. You're going to have to almost set up corporate teams to run those processes. The duplication that's going to occur would be quite significant. And I think there's not necessarily more work in doing that for three councils as to doing it for one council. And that's where smaller councils are always challenged with the cities. You know, there are things that we have to do that is exactly the same workload for a city that has 100,000 people in it to us that might have 20,000. It's just it's the inevitability of being small, as you pay more per connection because of all the things you have to do.
Tracy.
Yeah, I've got a few. Is that all right?
Yeah.
One is actually just in relation to some wording in the, it's not a question, sorry, Julie. In relation to, let's go through to my little notes, in recommendation 6, can we just expand out ML? I'm presuming means Morrison Low, rather than using an acronym. Can we just have that fully written
We
out?
can make that amendment.
That's really minor, I know. Where are we here? Okay, so So I guess what I'm going to do is just to ask you some questions in relation to addressing some of the major concerns that has come through from community. One of those is about loss of control. And just so that, we're really clear and so that anyone listening online understands how that is going to look going forward, if you could just talk to that, please.
I guess what I would say is there's a perception of control. There's a reality in the delivery of these services that they are shifting to a much more highly regulated environment. The ability to influence what gets done actually gets narrowed down quite a lot. So you will still be the shareholder. You will still set a letter of expectations that the CCO board will have to respond to. So you still are setting direction. They then have the responsibility to deliver that in alliance with that statement of expectations. So, and in terms of the day-to-day things, like I say, it's such a regulated environment that there's not always a lot of choice about what you can and must do.
Okay, thank you. The board of directors, sorry, I'm just trying to, the board of directors, that's going to be just confirming that is going to be chosen on merit, not chosen on any other aspects.
Determined by the mayor and one other council member will be on that committee. Committee. That group will be responsible for appointing directors. And then obviously directors will be responsible for appointing the chief executive. And at the moment, the constitution we haven't drafted that. That's the next stage, but there is some guiding principles, but that's still to be worked through between the shareholding councils and the next committee that forms post the elections, how they wish to structure that. But at this present point, the board of directors are professionals in the field. So the legislation is reasonably clear on that.
There's some rules around who can be a director. You can't be a councillor, you can't be an employee, there's things like that. And also in order to access the higher debt leveraging, that requires a competency-based board. So
thank you. I guess the other thing was a concern for the community is the estimated cost to establish of $8.8 million. Can you just talk to that and explain that, even if roundabout, just so that we
those numbers
once, yeah.
I mean, at the high end it was quite high. It could be quite low. I think I heard today that someone has established this for 1.5. Because they're a single entity. Or the group of councils at some stage, the water services entity is going to have some sort of enterprise system that does finances, does HR, does asset management. At this current point in time, we all use different systems. So there'll be a point in time where that company will want to go onto a single operating system of some description to manage all of that. There's a cost to that, and that's probably going to be a large chunk of the cost. Is establishing those sorts of systems to do your asset management, to do your finance and all that. There's no getting away from it. Because right now we have a system, but so we're all different. So there's going to have to be some changes there. So there's Morrison and I probably put quite a significant cost to that alone. But for a period of time too, I think it's fair to say that in the initial setup, the water services entity is likely to contract back to council, their respective councils, because on day one, this water services is probably unlikely to be able to do billing and invoicing. So that'll be a service level agreement between the WSE and the council, and we will be conducting that work for them. The water services team will be split away and will be functioning, and we may be leasing arrangements to them as well if they stay in our facilities. So there'll be some things that will help offset that cost, but over time, this WSE will want to create its own structure and its own systems And there is cost associated with it, but I think in the order that's come back, you know, we don't have to be fully functioning on day one.
Sorry. Okay, sorry, that one you've just answered some of that. Just in relation to rural fourth water, can you just clarify that so that we can be completely clear what fourth water actually means?
You said this probably largely relates to both the district council now, where they have rural water supplies. So they are very long piped networks that are supplying water for stock and for household use. So those supplies, if you think of Hadiaroa would have been one in the day, Vale, you know, they were built by communities for those communities, so they feel quite a high level of connection to those. They have quite a bit of influence in the operations, how they operate, and it's really important to them that they still have access to that water for stock. So that's what they refer to as the fourth water.
Okay.
I have to say I'm not an expert in those because we don't actually really have one apart from a very small bit of Hadiaroa.
Yeah.
It's not really an issue here in Central Otago the same.
So that fourth water isn't going to capture the farms that have got a couple of houses on a farm?
No,
Okay, that was just confirming that.
that would be a separate thing in the future. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, and just the other one that came up from the community, and it's mentioned a couple of times, is in relation to price harmonisation. Can someone just confirm
Yeah,
the
so-
position as of?
That's been going around the board for a while out there. At the moment, there is no intent to harmonise prices. The philosophy that the mayor's agreed with and has been worked through in the project team is that each council will not pay any more than what they would in an in-house business model. And so everything's ring fenced. Debt's ring fenced, revenue's ring fenced, pricing is ring fenced to the district. And what will be shared across that would be the cost associated with running the company and that sort of stuff. But in all intents and purposes right now, that is, the intent is not to harmonise prices. At some point in time, the water services entity, I would expect, would want to harmonise prices at a future point in time. I'm not sure when that would be. And it would be something that shareholding councils would have strong input into, but it is not envisaged in the short to medium term anyway.
Thank you. And last question, the new water services entity, there was a couple of references in the document itself in relation to hardship. Was I correct in thinking that that was in relation to like a hardship application that somebody from a community could make to the water services entity?
Yeah.
Or is that something different that I've missed?
I think that is in relation to, so because the cost of water is increasing, even though the proposition in front of you today is what we consider to be the going forward as the most cost effective option, it is still going to be more expensive than what we're paying for water today. Within that, I think the recommendation, the report talks about, and again, this is something for the company to structure and the shareholding councils to be part of, is that just like councils can remit for financial hardship, there should be something within that new water services entity that has that factor in consideration as well.
In previous legislation, I haven't kept track of the Commerce Commission legislation so closely this time, but there's requirements to have policies around those things because this is a critical lifeline service. You can't just cut people off because they can't pay their bills. There has to be provisions on how that's going to be managed.
So that would then be triggered at a board level.
Look, I don't know.
Well, the policies
Yeah.
would be developed and, you know, obviously brought forward by the chief executive and approved by the board. And then the water services entity would apply those policies. And in a sense,
Policy that
it would be between the water services entity and their customers.
Following on though from Tracy's comments, the cost, they won't know the cost until they really know who's on. set up a new company structure. Is the most efficient way having a board to managing the infrastructure with individual councils, because you've got all the policies. At the end of the day, you know what your water usage is, you know what your cost structure is, you know where they're depreciating, you know what you're doing, and just someone outside overseeing that at a management level to start with.
Yeah, I think to start with, you know, it's absolutely possible that financial support might still come back from the originating council as this organisation builds its organisation and fills it out. Because it's right now, Julie's team only has one financial person, and that support is provided by the rest of the council staff and the finance team, and that'll be the same with all the other councils. So, I mean, we'll work our way through what implementation looks like and what are the building blocks that we need to, so that on day one, this organisation can set up and be functioning. I think there's a general acceptance that what it is on day one is not what it'll be in 5 years' time, and that it'll be pretty lean and it'll be drawing support from its host councils.
There's one thing, and I just read an article at Federated Farmers Board about uniform standard charges, is that the rural sector, if it went down that line, will be paying a major contribution to the urban water.
Now, only properties connected pay.
But at the moment with depreciation, because we didn't depreciate all ours, that the rate park of the debt has been divided over the uniform charge.
Only for people connected to water. For everybody. So not everybody in our district pays the depreciation, only the people who are connected to the services.
But that's not the case with the debt. The debt staying exactly with the water usage.
The debt will go with the water entity.
I
so
can
it'll
just
only
add
be the water
to
users.
that, that under the legislation, even if Three Waters stays in council, by the 1st of July 2028, you have to be financially sustainable. So you have to be funding, and that means you're funding all your depreciation, your overheads are being allocated very transparently. So, and it's all got to be ring fenced. So it won't go to the rural community either way, because it's going to, even if it stays in council, it's got to be ring fenced to the people who are getting those services.
Can the board, I mean, clearly there'll be some very, very skilled people running the boards across the country. How do we get on when they make really good recommendations, and do they become a lobby, those boards become a lobby to government? Because if you had a board turn around and said, well, why don't you have a system where you do with Rodium where 51% or 32% of the ratepayer on new developments or new filtration or upgrades can be funded? I'm not saying it's privatisation, but the thinking could be of a privatising of a private world, or a public, rather than a public thinking. Is there an element for that to happen with the board?
Yeah, I would imagine that the board could feel so inclined to comment on government policy.
Well, that's, I guess, what I'm saying.
Yeah, and submit if they were of a mind if it was in their interest to.
And look, I go to meetings now, and people from Watercare and people from Wellington Water and that they're there with people like me, and no doubt our mayor and chief executive at their meetings where we are all making suggestions around how things could be done better. Don't always get heard, maybe. I don't think that'll change. They'll just be like we make suggestions on behalf of council. The people in those organisations will have suggestions.
Is there a willingness to information share from some of those entities that have already, like Wellington Water and Watercare? It is. Great.
We've got part of our project teams that are plugged into Waikato and Selwyn, and so there's a free exchange of information, and so that is a positive.
It's also happening through Water New Zealand as well.
A comment, not a question, and it was just a little bit in regards to Tracy asking if she thinks like a community feedback about losing control. And I sat in on the Waitaki workshop for 2 hours and 22 minutes a couple of weeks ago, and they had members from DIA there who spoke, and I just wanted to kind of mention a couple of things that I wrote down. Was that
economic regulation is coming, and it's coming to try and find the best solution for consumers, and that's going to look at price, quality, and future focusing. So looking at things like growth. And if we put in our own water services plan and it didn't stack up, then they would get a commissioner to come in, and it would be tough and intrusive. They could look at the whole of council, because our water isn't just ring fenced at the moment, it goes right through council. They could look at our whole council, and they could move the money to where they needed to make our water, because our water has to stack up. So we would actually be losing more control theoretically if we tried to have an in-house model that didn't financially stack up and we had a commissioner come in. That could be very intrusive.
Of the community boards.
Yeah. And they would just make things stack up financially. For water.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a bit of a list to go through, some in relation to the recommendations, so I'll leave them. Can we get a bit further towards there, or do you want me to do them now?
We can go through your list.
Okay. First thing, if I've got it right, Timaru met this morning, 11 o'clock?
Yep.
Update?
They have decided to leave that paper on the table.
Not significant.
So post-election,
Who would know for them to decide? So I'll get that right. Where is it?
Yeah.
In our recommendation number 4, it says agrees the deed of it, amendment and reinstatement and updated blah blah. Agrees or approves? Just wonder if the wording's kind of right. It just sort of agrees, but we're not be approving it perhaps.
well, but in recommendation 5 says authorises the chief executive to sign the deed of amendment and reinstatement. So in a sense,
Yeah, I just think the bill would be approved, but that's just me. And I'll leave it at that.
we have just seen Wynne Williams has gone through these recommendations. We've been going around quite a lot on legal advice to make sure that these now, so we've been very conscious of getting these recommendations right. So we've spent a bit of time in the legal advice around that and amending when necessary.
They might not have been as hard on the grammar as me.
Well,
So
I get that.
agrees to.
I get,
Or
well,
approves.
I just think to me that's not well worded. I think we're agreeing to it, but and then you're authorising you to sign it. Well, no, we should approve it, then you sign it. That's my logic. Well, no, I'm not a lawyer, so
Clearly.
yeah, clearly not. Yeah. All right, I'll leave that. Number 8. You say there we're agreeing to others joining. Why are we just naming TDC when in 7 above we've put scope for other councils?
So we do that because what the legal advice was that because we've already spent quite a lot of time and analysis with Timaru and Waitaki, so we've factored their numbers into a number of the analysis around the financial numbers and we actually consulted on Waitaki coming in as well. From a legal perspective, we could name those 2 councils that if they make a decision to join, they can join because we've factored them into our consideration on the various documents. The other councils, Selwyn to name a thing, we haven't consulted on that. And so that one would be a stretch too far. And so that's why it said there would be, it's left the door open to engagement with other councils, but that would be subject to respective councils and their consultation processes because we've consulted on Waitaki and we've done a lot of work with Timaru from the legal advices. You can name those 2, but you would be at risk if you named any other council.
I'm not asking the name. I think actually it does. I think 8 and 7 are in conflict with each other. The scope to add, and then we name 2. So what happens if someone else comes along because we're providing scope for them to come along? How do they get in? Come back? Because that's not clear.
Yeah, so that would be post 3 September, and then there'd be as these agreements lay out. There's a process for councils to join, and there's a process for councils to leave. So that's within the commitment agreement. And then as we draft the constitution and so on, there'll be mechanisms there which will enable councils to come in and enable councils to go in. But there's still,
Only when the lawyers gave you the stuff, they didn't actually set out their logic for that. It makes it difficult for us who are not lawyers to work that through. And my question is going, it's all covered. And I respect that, but it's bloody frustrating sitting here and going, well, you thought of all this stuff. Why didn't you put it in your report? Where is it?
So
It's
I think
important.
that separates the timeframes. So this makes it really a whole lot easier if Timaru or Waitaki decide at the very end of August, actually, we're going to submit a water services delivery plan. That means we join you.
I agree.
But beyond the 3rd of September, the door is open.
But
to
I
anyone
can't find
who
that
wants to
set
go.
out. So this is what it's going to do by this report to support the recommendations that I'm going to vote on.
but the commitment agreement has a mechanisms in that how councils can join.
Subject to doing that analysis again, because not, we've done the analysis on these 3 or 5 councils. We can see that it's always better with anyone in. But you could get another council come in where the analysis goes the other way.
So you could just say at that point there, and where you say within brackets on 7, Neil, with scope for other councils to join, subject to something that might
Well, I think
further analysis.
Peter just told me that's already been taken care of in number 8,
No, because they, No.
Number 13.
13, sorry. Yeah, beg your pardon. It's already covered in 13. Trouble is I'm not a lawyer and I can't work that out.
So,
Just keep reading. Just keep reading.
Still not going to mean it's easy for someone like me who's not a lawyer to actually understand that and get my question satisfactorily answered, apart from that it's taken care of somewhere else, but I can't see it. It's not explained.
I mean, 7 and 8 refer to TDC and WDC.
No, 7 refers to the scope for other councils to join.
No, it's Southern Water Joint CCO. The joint CCO is really pre-3 September, because then the mechanism there is keeping the door open for them at this side of the submission date. Post that, recommendation 13 picks up that there's a willingness to explore further opportunities for collaboration.
And I guess that's where it says with scope for other councils. If you were going to tidy it, it might say with scope for
Up until the
TDC and Waitaki District.
Well, yeah, but then
Those are the two that would.
Peter's saying about a date, but I can't see the date in there.
But the model for delivery of water services in accordance with section the Local Water Services Delivery Act 2004. And that act says we must submit a plan by 3 September.
so by Timaru leaving it on the table, they still have to, by the end of September.
No, August.
September.
3rd of September, they need to submit a plan. Their plan goes back to them on the 26th of August. for them
Their
to
option
sign off.
at the moment is they stay on their own or they join someone else or join someone else, not Southern end of town. They.
There was a lengthy discussion, Stu.
The reality now is that if councils are not joining now, they're probably going to have to do their own water services delivery plan, because every water service delivery plan has to have a resolution of the council and then be signed by the chief executive and submitted by the 3rd of September. And time is running out to keep adding in. So they'll have to do their own ones. And then you'd talk about it afterwards. Your water service delivery plan now is going to be on these 3. The other thing is with these water service delivery plans, they get submitted to the Department of Internal Affairs and then they get reviewed. It's not a put it in and that's the end of it. The Department of Internal Affairs does a review that includes, I think, Te Mara ROI, the Commerce Commission, different organisations looking at different parts of it. And if it doesn't stack up to meet the criteria, the legal criteria, then they won't accept it. They'll
And
be
then what happens?
back.
They get shoved somewhere else where they don't want to go anyway.
They put a facilitator into their council.
So the risk of that could happen and that other councils are forced to go somewhere else.
Feedback that we have had is that our group as a CCO won't be forced to take other councils. And we've already recognised there is benefit to the 3 of us by letting others join, but as Julie says, depending on who they are and what they bring. For each of those other councils, that's going to be their fish to fry.
Effectively, if Julie's right and timing is against them, we're on our own anyway.
We're not on our own.
No.
At this
But I
point,
mean,
we're with
the
three,
group,
four.
our group, the three.
Yes, so we need to proceed with the water
With the-
services delivery plan that is
Knowing
before
what
us
we
now.
know, pretty
Knowing
much.
what we know.
Yeah.
Having locked in who we currently have locked in.
Yeah.
Recognising that at this point, if we were to pass these resolutions and Waitaki and Timaru were given a pre-approval effectively, they could submit a plan on 3rd of September that says their plan is to join us.
We've still got a situation that Clutha and Gore could go by the end of the week.
We're going with the power of positive thought.
Yes, I get that. Yeah, I agree. But the reality is that they could still have this meeting like we're having and decide to go and do something else. Goodness knows why. They could actually.
They could
All right, so
go
what
and join.
I can really say is that my parting comment will be is that it's really great there's a whole legal thing going on this, but how I wish they had have actually documented and explained it. Because at the end of the day, it's really important that we understand what is exactly is going to happen, and then we can explain it to other people that have far poorer understanding than we'll ever have. But if I can't pick that up, and I've been part of this process now for God knows how long, and I don't see it, asking dumb questions, it seems, because it's already been covered, I don't think that we've probably been well served to have that explained to us by those lawyers that have done this wonderful work for us.
There are no dumb questions now. Cool.
It's frustrating when you say it's all done, but you can't see it. So it looks like a dumb question.
And part of that is just working through.
I'm sure I'd be in the same boat. If I had
Yeah.
been part of that part of it, I would have understood it all as well. I would have written the same bloody recommendations.
So could you change then with the scope for other councils, with scope for Timaru and Waitaki to join, right? So that just takes out that, what Neil's concern is. And then because you've got it down in 13, it notes the willingness.
I would recommend if this is done by lawyers, don't fiddle with what the lawyers have done, because I know one thing that can lead to,
Basically,
that would be my view.
I was just trying to
Yeah, I
allay
know.
your fears.
You won't. You can't.
we've named,
Accept the fact the lawyers have done this.
named the two
Take the
who
advice.
have the potential joiners who are looking at it now. And then nine, we leave the option for a third or fourth party to come in at a later date.
Our process won't be derailed
No,
by a third party, unknown party coming in.
exactly, because that
That was my concern. This is about understanding exactly what it is
How we-
going
how
forward,
we
and
got
how
to
it's going to work and what it's done, and saying, does this make sense? Because without that background that Peter's just given me, how the hell was I supposed to know?
out on the hustings, there are a number of potential candidates who could be sitting around this table who vehemently oppose this sort of. Would be really difficult for this to be stopped once it gets going.
If council ratify it and we submit the water services development plan, then if the council wishes to withdraw from the agreement, it would require the Secretary of Department of Internal Affairs Authority.
Yes.
Like that.
Well, that's a question that's probably going to be put to us in these upcoming public meetings. So that's the answer there. So if we agree now, we're basically committing ourselves and our future council to this work.
Some would argue that that's the reason why the timeframes are what they are from the government.
And the government has put that into practice to make sure this does go ahead, as opposed to making it a political football to be kicked to touch by any incoming new council.
And I think as well, just on that note, we've been sitting around this table for 3 years with all of this information. And if we left it to November to make the decision, when you've got a council that's been here for a month to make this decision, and they haven't sat around this table for the last 3 years listening to this information, then I would say that they wouldn't be making nearly as an informed decision as what we're making today.
Exactly.
I agree.
And it's just understanding the rationale from Wellington of how the process works and the challenge we have to explain it.
When we talk about small minor amendments, are we talking about spelling and typos?
Yeah, things that aren't material, I guess. So, but unless you have one that is.
I thought I had a
You
view.
would have to move it.
No, it's not.
Absolutely.
It was on do you take that out.
And then in 13, the only thing that I wanted to cover off from that notes the willingness of the council to explore further opportunities for collaboration with other southern councils. I would like to just say other councils because they may or may not be in what would be classed as southern. No, you?
Yep.
Happy with that?
For what it's worth, my comment on that was, I think that was a repeat of what's already bracketed in the number 7. But I don't think it is now, from what Peter said, because number 7 relates to pre-September the 3rd or something, and I'm supposed to work that out.
I think that was referring to South Island, but
Yeah. But some people north of us don't like the southern, we could say south councils, but it sounds a bit weird. So maybe if we just say councils, recognizing that we are unlikely to collaborate with Far North District.
Because country chooses, they should have been on the party earlier, and they could have had some influence perhaps.
we can make those amendments anyway.
Yeah, just, yeah.
I see page 41 that the DIA have been given the draft plan and provided an initial review that noted that the plan appeared to meet the requirements of section 13 and 14 of the Services Preliminary Arrangements Act 2024. Did they give any further information or detail on that?
There is a report, is it not attached to this? Maybe it's just a summary here, but yes, look, I think it's fair to say that DIA have been very supportive. They've actually helped us quite considerably work through this process and have reviewed our documentation at various stages. So it's of no surprise to them what they're expecting. So I think they hold Southern Water done well up as a strong model for what services entities could be and should be.
Certainly, that we get really positive feedback for the 3 councils that are working together down here.
And I think it's a bit of a false sense down here because we have a couple of councils around us who are looking to go it alone or form an in-house unit or an independent CCO. And the Minister highlighted last week, the majority of councils around New Zealand are working in some form of regional collaboration without having been forced. We are not unique in our cohort of 3. This is in line with what the rest of the country are looking to do, recognising that there's pockets of places where they are things differently or for different reasons. Separate view, but
Interestingly, the legislation that's anticipated to go through is now got a clause in it that requires all councils that are set up as a single council, in-house business unit, to do a review. They have to go through this full process every 5 years of looking at whether it's in-house, a single council CCO or a multi-council CCO. Because they don't think that it's probably that sustainable long term.
A significant cost on those councils.
replicating this process.
I also, on the call that I was listening on, DIA said that there are some councils that can do an in-house business unit because they're big enough. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're giving their community the best bang for buck, because even though they stack up, they still would be better if they were joining with other councils. So they said even though they do stand alone, it's not necessarily the best option for their community.
Cheryl, with Phil still online, I wondered if you had any comments or questions that you wanted to make as the lead who's been in all the extra meetings.
No, I think actually these have been really quite good questions, quite informative. I think that the document itself is quite clear, and unlike, I guess, because I've sat in on those meetings, Neil, I kind of did understand what it was saying. I think that it's great that the 3 councils have stuck together. I think that they've got a common goal, and that is that we get the best for our ratepayers, not just now but into the future. And yeah, that's about all I can say at this stage.
Yeah. Any other comments?
It came across really nice and clear.
Was very nice and clear, wasn't it?
It was quite loud. I know.
Yeah, it was quite loud.
Wayne's
Birmingham, I bet we could hear.
50%.
Cheap and dollar to see. Those who haven't had the opportunity to make a comment, Lindley, I wondered if there's anything you wanted to cover off. You've been around the table for the whole entire time as well.
I just think it's a huge exercise, and I have to rely on the information that I'm given because I'm not bright enough to be able to set up a water system or even understand anything about it. We've been given the best knowledge. We've got the best facts. Been told it's the best for our ratepayers now and into the future. It's the most cost effective. Economies of scale, economic. We have to go with this option.
Then you'd like to add?
Just wondering if there will be any impacts of having a WSC working in with council in terms of spatial planning in the differences that would occur in regards to what happens now.
I think what's coming through very much in the legislation now is these organisations are legally obligated to demonstrate that they are providing sufficient capacity to meet growth needs in each district. I think what's been happening sort of in Auckland now, where they've got some maps that show where they can't develop because it's not capacity, has really focused the government and the legislation now. So I think there's very strong protection to make sure that the spatial planning and the water planning are aligned going forward. Even if it's delivered by another organisation.
Have we any concept of what's going to happen to councils in general when we lose 1/3 of our business from this process? Is there, what noises are we hearing from DIA or from Wellington about what's next? Because there's got to be a what next.
Well, that's right. I mean, we will, council approve this obviously, but we'll work with those other two councils and work towards implementing that transition plan. The water services entry, we will lose Julie and all her staff. It's at 26 people would be transferred across the water services entry. There's probably some other functions where some of the staff will do a percentage of their time as supporting water. All that sort of thing is what we're going to have to work through in the transition plan. What does that look like for councils beyond that when you've lost, 1/3 of your revenue, a large chunk of your OPEX? That's definitely a moot and very much a live point.
Will look like a substantially different long-term plan process potentially come to.
Exactly. I think and there's been a lot of work coming out of Wellington on this process. What I'm concerned about is doesn't seem to be much work being done around the ramifications of this process. And we're going to be sort of really uneasy place for a period of time.
Possibly, but it's also a period where you could potentially have a lot of opportunity without a direction from central government. And it could be the opportunity for this council to decide what they are and what they provide for the communities here, rather than Wellington directing what will be provided. We've already talked about kind of rates reset of 2027 if 30% of our revenue and a large chunk of our OPEX goes, and what that might look like going forward. And I guess that could be for this council to drive the changes that it wants to see in the way the council operates and what it delivers. And there hasn't been anything necessarily stopping councils in the past from driving change and building efficiencies and all that in the past, other than perhaps the impetus to do things differently.
I relish the thought of being part of that process, but I'm frightened that will be imposed on us.
Yeah, and quickly.
What's stopping the DIA? It's not submitted by 25th of September deadline. DIA intervention and associated loss of decision-making control. What's stopping the management or the management group and or DIA deciding that that group isn't big enough and we want to amalgamate them all?
Well, right now, the requirement sits with councils. Councils have the authority.
It's the motion of the decision making.
With council. Beyond the 3rd of September, all councils that deliver water have to deliver a water services delivery plan. That plan has to be compliant with the legislation. If it's not, DIA has options and the minister has options. What they will do, you know, time
We don't know that. No one will know that.
no, but I think they've been very clear in their public statements, and the minister has talked about a range of options that he has. And so, if councils, what they submit doesn't comply, I would expect
Well,
they
it might comply, but it may not be of economics of scale to make it.
well, it has to comply with, it has to be able to meet the regulatory and the financial sustainability. They have to be able to make that case to the department. If they can't make that case, then the
But it
minister.
could be like a credit rating where AA plus is okay, but B minus is not. I mean, I'm just thinking that down, like effectively, if you're running a business model, which this is going to be the most efficient, under the Three Waters modelling, there's about 850,000 connections was the economic unit. And there's no way with what we're proposing, or even Timaru in, or Invercargill or Dunedin in, when the whole South Island's only got about that. There's nothing in my mind telling me if it was a business model run by DIA, nominated professional board, that discussion would be a very easy discussion to have, would it not? For efficiency for the whole South Island.
The minister's
We're
words,
only forming the front row and the rest of the team's going to be made up around us.
the minister's words last week were really clear that when he was talking about the majority of councils working together in New Zealand, he said it was without being forced and without government writing a cheque. And that, I think, is really highlighting this is what they want. They don't want to pay for it. They want councils to bear that. This is how we ended up with this government. This is what the people wanted. So we're going to have to make the best of
Yeah.
what the plans
And
are.
that's also what the DIA said in that meeting with Waitaki, was that if your plan complied, they would not come in and try and force you into anything else. If you comply, you comply, because that's what we asked for. We asked to be able to set up our own, to figure out our water ourselves. We didn't want to be told what to do. So if you comply, you comply.
And see also is that it's not coming up, we see a bit of cross-party support not to put us back through the ringer in 18 months' time.
Yeah,
If we get this process right, it's not going to be touched. Well, I won't say it's not going to be touched, but
It's just a second go ahead of it.
yeah, it's not, the baby's not going to get thrown out with the bathwater on this one. There won't be a complete reversal.
But also the other thing is, like, if people do an in-house and they can, and it stacks up, but they see a CCO going and it looks like it's better efficiencies, then that's not going to mean that that council can't change down the track and go, oh, actually, we could be more efficient if we were a part of a bigger group than standing alone. So
Especially as Julie says, they are going to have to revisit their decision.
yeah.
I think just bear in mind that economic regulation and the Commerce Commission, we've not even seen the impacts of that yet. We do our first information disclosure reporting, I think at the 30th of June next year. We haven't actually been told what the data is we're going to be disclosing yet, but it does worry me because all the messaging is this is going to be extensive, this is going to be a lot of work. And I think as that information becomes more available and transparent, people will start to understand that maybe things don't look quite as good as they anticipated that they did in their councils.
Not only do we not know what we're going to report, those that are getting the stuff don't know what it is they're going to be getting, and then what they do with it afterwards.
But they want to look at quality, they want to look at price, they want to look at money, and they're going to be focused on asset information and asset management.
You know, New Zealand want to have a crack at it as well because they can. Good. I think picking up what Martin was saying is that it'll be interesting to see what changes they may need, the government may need to make if they get too many councils submitting plans that don't comply. Because that might, for whatever reason, without them what they can look like, that could cause some sort of rethinks about where things end up as well. So, you know, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that will be a cold hard reality, is that the actions of some other councils
Trigger something.
may trigger something that we don't even know about at this stage. So maybe they need to think about their actions as they go down paths that are not sustainable. What impact it could have on their fellows.
Oh, yeah, we could be doing the right thing and all of a sudden everyone else doing something different and we all get chucked in the same heap.
Yeah. Well, as it is now,
And then they have been an option to those, the councils had an option to do what's been asked to do.
how often have we been having to fix something that someone else doesn't do well, but we do well, and we have to fix it to make up what they don't do.
Climate control is something that hasn't actually happened.
No.
As he goes out.
Cheryl, did you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I just wanted to, with reference to what Neil's just said, that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean, if you don't comply, if you don't have a model that the DIA is going to assess and say agree that is financially sustainable, you will be those councils will be forced, whether they might not even get a choice as to which councils they go with. They will be forced to join a joint CCO. So I think that it's going forward after the 3rd of September, there'll be I think there'll be an awful lot of councils that will now have to rethink and relook at their submissions, and a whole heap of them will end up with in joint CCOs.
Some of those will be new councillors who have never been, like Sally's point of view, have never been a part of any of those discussions. They're going to be forced into something they probably stood against.
Be a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
But I think the power of the commissioner, if the minister was to appoint someone, they take that decision off.
Well, the council here, they don't get a say.
Yeah.
Don't give a say.
As the minister said, I will do it to you.
Can I just ask, Peter, how bad does it have to get before they do actually put a commissioner in?
I'm not sure, but I do know that the department have written to 6 councils. Waitaki, close to us, Mackenzie, and there's some North Island ones. One, and will it please explain, because on their draft plan that they've submitted, it doesn't meet their requirements. So they have to make significant alterations, or the minister will take appropriate action post the 3rd.
And so what would be the time frame, given that, say, after the 3rd of September, what would your expectation be of the time frame before those councils would have to make a decision about whether they can join, whether they would join, or whether a commissioner would go in and tell them they have to join a CCO?
Before the 12th of October.
That's a really interesting thing. I think DIA will turn things around reasonably quickly. And they will be focusing on a narrow group of councils.
10th of October.
But as I can't answer that time frame, and whether they would wait till the new council's formed, I just don't know.
He did say that question was put to them previously, and they have said it would likely be a matter of weeks as opposed to anything.
They have the systems already in place at DI. It's not like they're reinventing the wheel as far as that's concerned.
You know who they need to be looking at.
They know who they've got, where they can put them, and how quickly it will take. Yeah.
Good thing is it shouldn't, but that was my worry, that it could ultimately affect others, fix the people that choose to rebel or make decisions that are not sustainable. And that's my biggest fear. Can't control it, but there's a risk out there, and the government may be forced to do something to fix those ones that are.
But that will, if they're in a couple of weeks, that has a major impact on the elections. Is it not the desired result of the DIA?
Who knows?
Right. On that, any final comments?
Can I go home? I just think it's worth acknowledging the work that is. I'd just like to acknowledge the work that you've done leading this group candidates to this point.
Amazing job.
And to Julie and her team, I think, people, very hard for people out there to comprehend just how much has gone on behind the scenes, and how much has been been absorbed, and proof, of course, of the pudding will be in the eating. That's what none of us really know, but we're going to make a decision now which is going to have a profound effect on this community for this generation and 2 more out. So,
Business decision.
Yeah.
We've had to make the best business decision that we can possibly make with all the best business advice we have given.
and you know, it has been quite a process, and you know, I'm grateful that we've had some leadership around this table to get us to this point.
And I think Julie's really highlighted it when she says the partner councils that we're proposing to work with are already aligning with us operationally. They align with us culturally in terms of, you know, the type of people that we serve, the communities and their aspirations and their challenges and the isolation. I think it avoids duplication. There is the reality in the delivery of services that are now highly regulated. It's not the same playing field that it was 2 years ago. And I liked that you highlighted the common goal is that we get the best for our ratepayers. And on that basis, I'm confident that this is the best for our ratepayers, and I'm happy to move recommendations 1 through to 13, noting that 13 will become other councils rather than southern councils. We'll be looking for a seconder, please.
Aye.
Thank you, Neil. Any further discussion? Those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Well done.
And I just really want to thank our council because I've watched a lot of other councils' meetings lately, and I wanted to thank you all. Huge amount of work that has gone into this. Thank you for coming to the meetings, coming to the workshops, watching the webinars, reading the papers, taking the late night phone calls, replying to the text. It is very much appreciated, and I really like that we haven't had anybody around this table saying we need more time to understand what's happening. We've had 3 years. Nobody's saying, you know, we don't understand what's going on, or with faith in the numbers. We have faith in our people and the team that's put this together. I'm happy that we've taken that step forward, and now we'll take bated breath to see where Gore and Cliff are going to do later on this week.
I don't think I've ever seen so much significant supporting information that's gone through and checked and checked and checked and make sure that we have got it well and truly covered. And that for me is the key thing, is that you know, not saying we don't do the other stuff, but this is comprehensive. This is one of the biggest things that we've ever done in my whole time at this table, and level of support here to back up those decisions to put us in a good place. And you know, you're getting the best of the best telling you this is the right thing to do. Little but choice to go and do it. So.
And Martin's right. When we talk about the Mokopuna or the grandchildren decisions, this is one. This is not going to be us that benefit from this. It'll be those that come after, which is pretty cool. That is the end of our formal meeting. The date of the next meeting is the 27th of August. Yes, tuned. Right. Yeah. So the next meeting, 27th of August, the formal meeting is now closed, and we will move into the workshop session. And because the